Hunter Biden's laptop is back in the news after the New York Times says its contents are legit. Democrats and the liberal media called the story Russian disinformation. Can we trust the media not to take sides? Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. This episode is sponsored by Surfshark. You should be using a VPN like Surfshark to protect yourself whenever you go online. So, the New York Times has confirmed emails that were on Hunter Biden's laptop are authentic. That's after they were panned in the media as being Russian disinformation. Liberal mainstream media outlets have either been ignoring the Hunter Biden laptop story or downplaying it for the last year and a half. They've been treating the story the way parents treat their sons when they become ventriloquists. What's Jeffrey been up to? Not much. He works with lumber. The New York Times reported last week on an ongoing federal investigation into Hunter Biden. As part of that, they mentioned down in paragraph 24 of the story that a cache of files that appear to have come from a laptop abandoned by Hunter Biden in a Delaware repair shop has been authenticated by people familiar with them and with the investigation. So, Hunter Biden's laptop and the emails it contained are real, according to the New York Times. Does the fact the New York Times confirmed this mean the liberal media can no longer ignore the story of Hunter's shady business dealings? Nope, they're going to keep on ignoring it. Which is a huge problem, and I'll get into that later in the episode. But first, a quick recap in case you've forgotten all about this, since the 2020 election feels like 16,000 years ago. A laptop belonging to Joe Biden's son, Hunter, ended up in a computer repair shop in Delaware. The laptop was never picked up, so the owner took possession of it. He later turned it over to the FBI, but not before making a copy of the hard drive, which ended up at the New York Post. Which of course ran with it because if there's anything right-wing media love, it's a scandal involving emails. This story blew up when the New York Post had its Twitter account shut down over the story. Facebook also restricted the story. Twitter's reason for suspending the account was that the emails must have been hacked. I'm not sure where Twitter got that idea, though. The Post said in its article it got a copy of Hunter's hard drive through a source. And that source was former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who was Donald Trump's lawyer at the time. The Post said emails on the hard drive showed Hunter got his dad involved in his business dealings when Joe Biden was vice president. If true, this is the most shocking thing the child of a president has done since George W. Bush invaded Iraq. The Post published a whole series about Hunter's emails in October 2020. Now, this was just a few weeks before the 2020 election. It didn't look good that Biden was being accused of getting involved in his son's business in Ukraine and China after claiming he didn't.
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business.
And so how do you know?
Let's talk about, here's what I know. I know Trump deserves to be investigated. He is violating every basic norm of a president. You should be asking him the question.
Like avocados and Val Kilmer, that didn't age well. Specifically, the Post said the emails showed Hunter introduced a Ukrainian business associate to his father. This was during the time Joe Biden was handling Ukraine issues for the Obama administration. It also reported that Hunter tried to cash in with a Chinese energy firm, also while his dad was vice president. One of Hunter's business partners later said Joe may have gotten a cut of that deal. Now, to be clear, Joe Biden hasn't been charged with any crimes. He also hasn't been investigated over his son's business dealings, that we know of. But it does look like Hunter was using his dad's influence to make money. And it also makes the Biden family look vulnerable to foreign influence. You know how annoying it is when the son of a rich, powerful person says, "Do you know who my dad is?" Well, Hunter Biden practically had that printed on his business cards. But when things were starting to look bad for Joe Biden, the Democrats found their talking point. This was all Russian disinformation. They started saying that after 51 former intelligence officials signed a letter saying the Hunter Biden story has all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation. And it does. I mean, Putin should be jealous of how much division this sowed in the U.S. Of course, the intelligence officials also said they didn't know whether the emails were genuine and that they don't have any evidence of Russian involvement. It's just that their experience makes them deeply suspicious the Russian government played a significant role here. Well, that's not exactly conclusive, but the Democrats ran with it.
50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plant. They have said that this has all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage.
There's overwhelming evidence that from the intelligence community that the Russians are engaged.
And liberal media followed along.
Serious questions tonight about whether the Russians are using Rudy Giuliani to interfere in the U.S. presidential election.
This looks like Russian intelligence. This walks like Russian intelligence. This talks like Russian intelligence.
This quacks like Russian intelligence. Sorry, I just wanted to keep it going. Anyway, the FBI reportedly started investigating whether the emails were planted by Russia. So yes, some in the intelligence community believed that this could be the case. And to be fair, Russia was trying to sway the election in favor of Trump, according to a report by the National Intelligence Council. But that's not the same as Hunter's emails actually being Russian disinformation. This is more of a Russian happy little accident. Yes, this image is horrifying, but it's still better than a Hunter Biden painting. In addition to calling it Russian disinformation, there were attempts by liberal media to sow doubts about the Hunter Biden story. The Times even ran a piece about how some New York Post reporters didn't think the Post should have published it. To be fair, the Post got a copy of Hunter Biden's hard drive from Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. And if you get handed something like this by the lawyer for a presidential candidate, it's best to proceed with extreme caution. Lawyers are hired to do one thing: protect their clients. So yes, the media shouldn't rush to amplify a story that they can't verify. But if there is a story of this size, you would think they would be interested in digging a little deeper into it, right? Unless they were afraid of what they'd find if they dig a little deeper. Kind of like if you ask your mom about her dating history. There's definitely a lot of stories there, but you don't want to know the details. The New York Post said it did authenticate the laptop's contents with the repair shop owner and Biden's cronies. The Daily Mail said it hired cyber forensics to authenticate the laptop. Fox News confirmed at least one of the emails with a source who was copied on it. Even Hunter Biden didn't deny the laptop could have been his.
Was that your laptop?
For real, I don't know.
I know, but you
my
know
point
that's
is,
this is.
I really don't know.
Okay.
The answer is.
You
That's
don't
the
know
truthful
yes
answer.
or no if the laptop
I don't have
was
any
yours.
idea. I have no idea.
So
whether or
could
not.
have been yours.
Of course, certainly. There could be a laptop out there that was stolen from me. There could be that I was hacked. It could be that it was Russian intelligence. It could be that it was stolen from me.
It could be that it's a communication from an intelligent alien species. I don't know. The universe is a mysterious place. A year later, the New York Times still called the Post's article unsubstantiated, although it later deleted that claim in its article. But they didn't delete their tweet. It's this lack of attempt to verify the Hunter Biden information and their attempts to discredit it that makes the media look bad. So how has the mainstream media reacted to the New York Times now confirming Hunter's emails? I'll get to that after the break. Welcome back. The New York Post broke several stories tying Joe Biden to his son's foreign business dealings while Joe Biden was vice president. Democrats and the liberal media tried to brush it off as Russian disinformation, or claimed there was no story because the information wasn't verified. But now the New York Times has confirmed the emails are verified. Congrats to those emails for finally getting their blue check mark on Twitter. I'm still waiting for mine. Nobody is debunking or restricting this story now, unlike the New York Post's coverage 2 years ago. Back then, liberal media justified their non-reporting of the Hunter Biden story as being responsible. They claimed the New York Post's coverage was nothing more than a partisan attack to help Donald Trump get re-elected. NPR's managing editor said, "We don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories, and we don't want to waste the listeners' and readers' time on stories that are just pure distraction." This was a politically driven event, and we decided to treat it that way. It's weird saying they won't report on something because it's a politically driven event, considering, every election is a politically driven event. After the New York Times verified the emails, there has been crickets from NPR on Hunter Biden. So what are the other mainstream media saying about it now? Well, the Washington Post published an article explaining why they were skeptical of the story to begin with. It concluded that even today the full story isn't clear. Republicans, of course, are now having the New York Times of their lives thanks to this development. They can give yet another example of how biased the media is. And big tech, of course. As of this recording, we didn't find any mea culpas by the media, which shouldn't surprise you. No one likes to admit their mistakes. Except Hunter, apparently. His autobiography is all about his drug addiction, sleeping with his sister-in-law, and admitting he was, perhaps, hired by a Ukrainian energy company because of his last name. Actually, that last one he says he doesn't regret. The New York Post reached out to the 51 former intelligence officers who signed the letter discrediting their story. Most didn't respond. Those who did had no regrets either. And I'll have more after this final commercial break. Welcome back. The New York Times last week authenticated the emails that came from Hunter Biden's laptop. So far, there hasn't been much of a liberal mainstream media response, and definitely no headline saying, "We got this wrong, we should have taken it more seriously." They refused to apologize or admit they were wrong. Who are they? All of my exes? But beyond that, this story shows what a wide investigation is being done into Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings. Hunter himself said in 2020 that he was being investigated over his taxes. He could still face charges for that. But the Times reports that the investigation also included things like foreign lobbying and money laundering rules. That kind of investigation didn't look good when Joe Biden was vice president. And it really doesn't look good now that he's president, especially if the investigation ties the president to any of his son's business dealings. But there's a bigger problem here than just Hunter Biden's shady business dealings, or his mediocre art. The Hunter Biden laptop story was reported completely differently by conservative and liberal media outlets. And now, conservative media outlets feel vindicated, while liberal media outlets are quietly ignoring it. But it's not just the media coverage breaking down along partisan lines. Trust in the media is also breaking down along partisan lines. According to a survey conducted last summer by the Pew Research Center, Republicans' trust in national news organizations has dropped by 50% in the last 5 years. That's huge. This has dangerous repercussions in our society. People are starting to believe that nothing the mainstream media says is true. Some people are so fed up that they believe the opposite of whatever the media says. For example, we covered some real Russian disinformation in this episode on bioweapons in Ukraine. The link is below. But because some people have lost so much trust in the mainstream media, they believe Russia's version of the story over the mainstream media's version. This is the media's fault. We need nonpartisan news organizations that everybody can trust, or we're going to have a big problem when Russia or China tries to divide us. So what do you think? Let us know in the comments below. And this episode is sponsored by Surfshark. Whenever you go online, everything you do is being tracked and logged by the websites you visit and your internet service provider, and in many cases by the government. And if you're in an authoritarian country like China or Russia, this kind of tracking can put you at risk of surveillance and even arrest. Citizens like you and me are being monitored constantly. That's why you should always be keeping your internet activity private by using a VPN like Surfshark. Surfshark secures your data with top-of-the-line, uncrackable encryption. And on top of that, Surfshark intentionally does not keep logs of what you do. In fact, one cool thing it does is keep a server network in the British Virgin Islands, where local laws allow Surfshark to not keep user data logs. So if you haven't checked it out yet, go to Surfshark. With just one account, you can connect as many devices as you want. So try it out now. Surfshark has a special deal that includes 83% off a 2-year plan plus 3 extra months for free. You can protect yourself for just $2.21 a month. So go to surfshark.com/uncovered and use the code UNCOVERED to secure the deal. The link is in the description below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.